Delighted. It's so great to see you and so great to be here with this enthusiastic crowd. So we are having a really important conversation, I think, around techno-economic solutions. What do we mean by that? We need to obviously meet the growing demand for energy, but at the same time embrace a decarbonized future, but make the economics work. And that's a difficult do imperative, but one I think that we're going to feel a lot better about after we talk to you. So let's sort of set the stage and give us a little bit of a sense of what you've been up to right now and the kind of priorities you're working on. Just a little intro, and then we'll dive in.
Okay, well, I mean, we chatted briefly beforehand. I'm super excited because I've come here after a week in Europe. And we had two big commercial projects that make the techno-economics, as you say, work, actually opened up and commissioned and operating. And I was joking that this is the first time my team have had to deal with two royal families in the 1 week, because we had His Royal Highness, the Prince of Norway, and Her Majesty, the Queen in Denmark, both at sites actually physically looking at technology that captures carbon in a safe way, puts it in the ground, and has a viable business model. And that's really exciting. That's about having your cake and eating it too, about somehow being able to have a path to clean, decarbonized power and less emissions from industry, and being able to support it with an active private business, albeit with government help to get it off the ground in the first place, but to be able to actually prove that you can have real good quality business models. So that things that
are happening in the here and now. That's a nice dance card to have. So we're lucky to get you today in that case. So talk to me a little bit about, and by the way, for those, I'm sure most of you, but for those of you who are watching and streaming, SLB New Energy is a global technology company with a significant global footprint in more than 100 countries. And SLB is really working on innovating within the energy space, decarbonizing industries, and developing ability to scale these energy projects, which is really important because we talk a lot about the innovation, but if you can't get it out in the real world and scale it, then it's not going to be able to meet the demand that we're talking about. So as we build out this energy landscape, what are the technological advancements that you're looking at that can move the energy systems forward to meet this demand? Okay. And at the same time, be able to be economically viable?
Okay, so maybe I'll talk a little bit about our philosophy and thinking, because that's evolved over the last few years. So my organization now, was originally very technology driven. Can you do something in a specific type of hydrogen or a specific part of carbon capture or something else? And we reorganized a year and a half ago into an organization that was around fixing customer problems. So we now have a business unit that's referred to as industrial decarbonization. And the folks there, they understand the economics of the cement industry and what it takes to decarbonize a cement plant, and now even to the point of what the customer is looking for, a high degree of fidelity. Similarly for steel, similarly now for waste to energy, similarly for pulp and paper, as it turns out, is an interesting place to decarbonize. So I think there's a pivot to being able to really understand what technology you tailor to a solution and a use case to be able to decarbonize. The second part of the portfolio is about renewable energy enablement and efficiency. And obviously renewables have had large build-outs across the world in different ways, and there's different characteristics to the renewable system depending on how much variable and whether or not you have hydro or something else in your mix as to how you manage your grid and so on. So we were looking there to put in place pieces of technology that were going to help move a power system in the right direction. And in that instance, we really have done a lot of work on geothermal, one of the fastest growing parts of our company today, and in energy storage, long duration energy storage beyond batteries, which is a problem that you now start to see hit the world in the more advanced regions that don't have, a baseload decarbonized power source. You talk to Southern Europe, Spain and Portugal have had issues. My country, Australia, have had both market failures as well as physical failures in grids, and now you're starting to, Texas itself has undergone some challenges. So being able to actually help move the power system forward, which is obviously growing much faster than the overall energy system, double the rate, I think, is really important part of where we're focused on as a technology company. And then the third part is around, security, reliability, and value chain. And we have been working now for 3 years and actually built a scaled technology solution for critical minerals in the development of lithium from brine. And actually this week, literally yesterday, we were awarded the most sustainable lithium production solution on the planet, as a result of being able to put together something that can take lithium ions out of brine in the subsurface, put the brine back into the subsurface where it was supposed to be, and produce very high-grade lithium in an extremely economic fashion, which is a quantum leap from the way that the industry currently does it today. So
it's interesting that you're sort of, it sounds like moving customer first is an interesting model, and I wonder if it's given you any insight. How are you finding, or where do you see the best promise in terms of finding the solutions they're looking for, the decarbonization, but moving it from something that is seen as a compliance cost to something that is a business opportunity, is unlocking potential for them in the future? Because I've got to think that will change the conversation.
Okay, so maybe I'll use a couple of examples.
Sure.
So this carbon capture project that we're talking about, it was heavily orchestrated and supported by government to get it off the ground. But the plant we switched on, and literally the first week of May, is for a company called Heidelberg Materials. They produce one of the world's biggest cement manufacturers. We've been working with them building that plant for a number of years. It's a 400,000-ton carbon capture unit, so significant size. And what it has led them to do is launch a product which is the first decarbonized cement out in the market, and they will openly tell you, charge a significant premium for that product. It's sold out. The plant was open the first week of May. We got carbon in the tanks and onto the ship literally last week, and the entire volume of cement, green cement, or low carbon cement from that plant is sold out all through 25 and through 26. The CEO posted publicly a couple of days ago. So that tells you there is depth in a market that is private, that will work, and as you start to build that out and make that available, if you are a government in the world or a company in the world that has an agenda that's serious about decarbonization, this is the sort of product that actually moves you in the direction of being able to stand up and say, yeah, I did what I needed to do against my agenda. So that's one good example. The second, which was in the Netherlands, is a waste-to-energy plant. And this is really quite cool, because you go there, it's a little town in the Netherlands in a place called Twents, and you see trucks rolling into this plant, and they're full of waste, industrial and urban waste and everything else. They go into a big generator that obviously converts the waste to heat and produces power. But not only does it produce power, it produces power for the local area. It's about 55 megawatts, so it's not a huge unit. It produces heat that goes out to the local breweries, the town. It supplies heat for the local area, which is obviously needed in parts of Europe. And then the carbon is converted, liquefied, and put into trucks and sent out to greenhouses and pumped into the greenhouses to accelerate the production of food. And overall, this locally initiated enterprise is actually a very healthy, profitable business. So when you start to see those, and that particular combination of things is about, to your point, understanding what does it take to make this not just technically viable, but economically viable as well.
Because this is the missing key, isn't it? I mean, these are capital-intensive projects. In many cases, there's an obligation to shareholders, or certainly to other community members or stakeholders. And so combining that with not just decarbonization, but something that is not only economically viable, but can allow you to have a premium, potentially, is what we've been missing in many of these projects. So the successes, the fact that we can hold this out as a success is important, but how do you determine when something's ready, when a project is ready to pivot, to be able to scale? How do you, sequence matters. How do you figure out that you're at that point?
You know, I'll be very glib and say fortune favors the brave. But that's absolutely a reality here. When you are serious and serious companies get together and are able to do something that the world hasn't done before for the first time, what you find is immediately afterwards there is a scaling that comes. And the cement case is, I'll use a couple of different examples in a second, but the cement case is an interesting one because we've been working with multiple companies within the cement industry looking at different options and paths for decarbonization for some time now. The fact that that plant has turned on has meant there are like at least 25 viable projects that we have on our list of cement plants that have, and at least 10 are really pretty committed to making a decision in the next couple of years following that. And you know, you have one 400,000 ton unit. Our back of the envelope calculation on the cement plants in the world you could apply that technology to means there's 100 million tons of carbon in just that industry that can be abated as a result of deployment of this technology, which has a commercial context. Now, how deep is the market is yet to be discovered. Maybe it's 25, a quarter of them, or a half of them. You can say exactly the same in power. And I think the other thing we touched on briefly is the importance of carbon markets. So we don't, a project we have not commissioned yet, but is under construction right now, is in Denmark to produce power. And it is negative carbon. It's bioenergy, it's wood chips and so on that are converted to electricity in a power station. The carbon is captured and sequestered. And interestingly enough, the technology companies that are really important, are driving a lot of the carbon market at the moment, are completely underwriting that project because in the credits that they're purchasing from the company. So again, another viable business model, sustainable over 10, 20 years that you can use to start things on. And I mean, I have examples in hydrogen. We are right now talking to some serious customers in the US about geothermal power alongside a partner of ours, Ormat, where we can deliver decarbonized geothermal power to data centers. There are many, many of these in different parts of the world.
Does success in one area help you accelerate in another area? Because we see the broader market and maybe attention around it get hot on something, and then there seems to be some disappointment as you scale and build out. Everyone wants everything now because we know the demand is here. We only have to see what's happening with the grid. We're sitting in a heat wave, and there's strains on power. Everyone wants an immediate solution, but some of these have a longer period to develop. Can you take a success in one area? Does it help inform you in another? And how do you see the different, hydrogen, geothermal playing out in terms of market demand and what you're hearing from customers? Yeah,
so it absolutely does. I mean, I think if I look at across, so we're involved currently, one of our portfolio companies, John Cockerell Hydrogen, is delivering a 630 megawatt hydrogen order into India today for green ammonia. The hydrogen market has a lot of negative press at the moment, but delivering that and making that value chain work, which, by the way, the volumes are underwritten and sold already from the customer anyway. When you're the first one to do it, then it gives confidence to the market, and I think the business model is important. I think on several of our big, and this is really in the industrial decarb side of our projects, have been on the books of the customer for 10 years. They have tried sometimes with an alternative, not necessarily provider, but consortium. They've gone through a feed process. They haven't been able to make it work. And then we've worked with them in a very different way to find an economic path to an outcome that works for us and that works for them. And I do think there is this ability to not necessarily work in a conventional project structure that unlocks some of these. One of the things we find is where there is a traditional EPC technology provider, a few other people, customer, it becomes difficult because an EPC company, and there are great EPC companies out there in the world, they're motivated on having bigger projects. They run on engineering hours. As an OEM or a technology provider, we want to get as many units sold. These things are different fundamental business drivers. And so you got to really be very clear between yourselves and your customer. How do you want to set this up so that everyone wins? And it seems a bit cliche, but the reality is in where we managed to get that done, we're moving forward and we're delivering projects at scale.
What about how this plays out in the broader investment community? Because we know, I had a conversation last night and someone said, what happened to the SDGs? Not that they've gone away, but some of the conversation around it has quieted down. We're in a different political environment. What are you seeing in terms of demand? And does some of the success of the ability to scale and prove the economic case help create a halo when it comes to the investment community, when it comes to the people who are providing capital, who will be willing to make that sort of decade-long commitment?
Yeah, I mean, bankability is a huge thing for projects.
Bankability.
And I think we have multiple financial companies that we are working with today that are much more happy, and indeed we are finding sort of, let's call it systematic ways to work together, where they bankroll projects that we're involved in. And that's because they understand that we're not going to put our brand behind a technology that's out there in the world at scale if it's not going to work, or not necessarily work to the performance expectation of the customer or the situation. So I think there's a serious part of that. I think it's all very well to have startups, and we work with tons of startups. I have the venture capital portfolio as a part of the company as well, that are really, really smart people with exciting ideas. But the reality is when you're about to sign a check for $1 billion, you want to work with a company that is an industrial technology company that you can rely on to deliver, and that's going to be around for 20 years to look after your plant as it works down the track. And we see that quite a lot, right? And the other part about it is there is a skill to industrialization and making something reliable. There's a skill to being able to design a form factor that works for a particular use case. And there's a skill to thinking about the overall economics, whether it's power economics, whether it's other input economics or capital economics, which drive some of these decisions. And I think that's a hole, if you like, that we've stepped into, and I think the market needs to move forward.
Yeah. So time for a quick question. What should we as decision makers champion to drive real action? And I would throw in, where's the challenge? Where does the challenge lie here that you think needs to be solved in order to continue to accelerate in this direction?
No, I think as decision makers, firstly, you have to be extremely clear and relatively transparent about the outcome that you're searching for with your partners. And if you do that up front, that helps a lot. Firstly, it'll filter out some of the folks that don't think that they can somehow get there with you. And secondly, it allows you to put in place business models that will work long term. And I think that's really, if I look at some of the, we created a hydrogen company in France that is multiple users of hydrogen, ourselves as a technology company, an actual research institute, to be able to scale out solid oxide electrolyzer. And every partner in that is somehow aligned from a different angle in making it work. And so when you have multiple vested partners that actually have depth behind them, there is a different cement company involved in that, then you're actually able to move forward with a level of momentum and seriousness and purpose to work your way towards an outcome. And sometimes it can happen quite quickly, and sometimes it takes a little while. But you're able to get there. And I think there is, if you are in it for, to be in this space for a very short time horizon, it is difficult for you to be motivated and incentivized as a company if you're simply trying to dress up a technology and sell it, than if you're there to provide it to the industry or create a market for the long term. And I think that's something that I talk to my team about a lot. The reality is every time we execute and deliver one and it works, we create a market. There is a market for green cement in the world today that our customer has created, that our technology has enabled. When we do something in geothermal and make a geothermal resource that was not viable before, viable today, we are creating a market for baseload dispatchable decarbonized power in parts of the world that have not seen it before. And so that is really, really fun because you literally are creating a space that hasn't happened in the world. Yeah.
Importantly, in the real world, which matters so much right now. Gavin, thank you so much. This was fascinating.
Thank
so
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.